My name is Kiana, and I will be analyzing Bell Hooks and one of her critical race theories. My information is based off of her 1992 novel, Black Looks, which consists of multiple short essays on being black, primarily in America. I've chosen to examine Chapter 1, which is titled Loving Blackness as a Political Resistance. In the beginning of Hooks' essay, she writes about how a group of black students and scholars in her class were more interested in discussing black self-hatred and how they unconsciously strive to attain whiteness, as opposed to embracing their blackness. As a result of this class, she concluded that this mentality amongst the African American community comes from oppressive white power structures that reinforce their influence over black lives, and in order to fight back, we must love our blackness as a political resistance. Step 1. Loving Blackness. Hooks stated that the first step to fight this mentality is to learn how to love blackness. On page 10, she writes, "Most folks in this society do not want to openly admit that blackness, as sign, primarily evokes in the public imagination of whites, hatred and fear. In a white supremacist context, loving blackness is rarely a political stance that is reflected in everyday life. When present, it is deemed suspect, dangerous, and threatening." Black cultures that have emerged from the apartheid and segregation are one of the few places that have provided a space for loving blackness and to decolonize the mind. But unfortunately, racial integration in a social context of white supremacy undermine marginalized spaces of resistance, and the assumption that social equality can be attained without changes in the culture's attitudes about blackness and black people. In simpler terms, people can't see what's wrong, so what is there to change? You might be wondering why black people still buy into white supremacy and reject their culture. Well, Hooks' unfortunate but very relatable answer is that individuals who reject their blackness and embrace their whiteness will oftentimes receive rewards such as money and gain a higher socioeconomic success. These individuals are regarded as whitewashed in popular culture and usually become very successful because they don't act black, or as Bell Hooks would say, reject their blackness. Step 2. Critically interrogate whiteness. The second step to fighting white supremacy is to critically interrogate whiteness. Now, a large portion of Hooks' essay is based off of black theologian James Cone and his novel, A Black Theology of Liberation. He writes, when regarding white people, they must destroy themselves and be born again as beautiful black persons. Now, Hooks strongly disagrees with this statement because of two reasons. One, it is impossible for white people to become black. And two, white people are more or less protected from racism, so there's nothing to be reborn again, like the African American community. And although the white population can never have the black experience, Hooks does recognize those who strive to make the lives of minorities better. She suggests that they use their power, especially in politics, to work on behalf of the oppressed population. Hooks believes that there needs to be a kind of education for critical consciousness that can enable those with power and privilege rooted in structures of domination to divest without having to see themselves as victims. In this education, she also suggests to teach different types of racism. Bell Hooks strongly disagrees and actually finds it offensive when the Caucasian race claims that black people are just as racist as everyone else. She writes, "It seeks to deflect attention away from or even excuse the lives of black people by suggesting black people are racist too, indicates that the culture remains ignorant of what racism really is and how it works. It shows that people are in denial." It is made clear that the difference between white people and black people being racist is that the prejudicial feelings of black people towards white people are not linked to a system that promotes domination and power to control the lives of white people. Shelby Steele is another philosopher whose works are briefly discussed in Black Looks. She believes that in order for racism to be extinct, we must form a society that promotes cultural homogeneity, which is cultures uniting and living as equals. However, Hooks thinks her theory is impossible because everyone is not the same. To require blacks to be the same as whites is unfair to blacks. It is asking them to give up who they are. Equality, will not come until whites accept blackness and think that there is nothing wrong with it. Alright, so now that I'm done with explaining bell hooks' theory, I will now apply it to real life. And in this case, it's my life. So the part of her essay that I found the most relatable is when Hooks references rejecting your blackness in order to receive rewards and gain higher socioeconomic success. And I relate to that because it is a super common issue amongst those in the black community who wish to be successful. And because I wish to be successful in my professional career, I do face it, unfortunately. I will admit that in my previous jobs, I have unfortunately made a conscious effort to not act too black because I find that there are a lot of negative stereotypes attached to them. And I do not want my employer or person of authority associating those negative thoughts and stereotypes with me. But the tricky thing is that although many members in the community reject their blackness in the workplace, they are very proud of their heritage outside of it. So I'll tell you a story to help illustrate what exactly I'm talking about. Imagine a young 30-year-old woman who is the CEO of a large company. She is from the Caribbean, let's say Grenada, and she is planning to participate in Caravana. And for those of you who don't know, Caravana is a carnival in Toronto that celebrates Caribbean heritage. So, you know, she goes to carnival, she's in her costume, she's dancing, drinking, and she's having a good time. You know, she went to Caravana. But now, where she rejected her blackness, her Caribbean culture, was afterwards when she wanted to put pictures of herself in costume on social media. But she chose not to because she felt as though they were inappropriate for her coworkers to see. Black women have been objectified as sex symbols for generations, and she did not want to be portrayed with this stereotype because of the costume she was wearing to Caravana. As I said earlier, we sometimes reject our blackness because we do not want to be associated with some of the negative stereotypes attached to it. Now, during the festival, women in particular are dressed in very scandalous costumes and dance provocatively to some other cultures. But what people do not understand is that this is in fact a part of our own Caribbean heritage. We didn't start dancing like this when we came to Canada. We've been doing this since before we immigrated here. And because Caravana culture is not a part of Caucasian life and is sometimes misunderstood by white people, she must conform to whiteness and hide her blackness. I think the story I just told is a perfect example of how the white power structures that have influenced society has also influenced the professional world and has taught the black community in particular that they have to embrace whiteness in order to be a part of society because they see flaws in our own culture. Bell Hooks is right when she says the white people must accept blackness and think that there's nothing wrong with it in order to end racism. Alright, so now that I'm done giving a general summary of Bell Hooks' theory and also applying it to real life, I will now answer some general questions about how I thought about reading it and what I thought about her theory. So the first question was, what was the most surprising thing you read? I think the most surprising thing that I read was when Bell Hooks disagreed with cultural homogeneity. I found it really weird because initially, like, you would think, okay, well, the way to defeat racism is to just, you know, be equal as everyone, be cool with each other, we're not different, stuff like that. But she was actually kind of right when she said that we are different, and the way to end racism is to accept, but also embrace our differences. And when we do that, then there's nothing to fight about, and then no one is superior. Because if we all accept each other, there's nothing better. Alright, and the second question is, do you agree or disagree with Bell Hooks' theory? Alright, so when I made this question, I thought that, okay, I probably agree with some things and disagree with other things. I thought for sure there's something that was wrong with it. But when I was reading it, there actually wasn't. I think just because she used a lot of harsh language, I immediately thought, okay, she's being mean to white people, you know, we need to, like, be a bit nicer and stuff. But she's right, because we do need to love our blackness, you know? The black community needs to learn how to not reject or hide our blackness, like me and like a lot of other people, especially in the workplace, and we need to learn how to be proud of it all the time and to not hide it, not to conform. She's also right in saying that the Caucasian race also too needs to learn that there are some things different about us and that they can't just judge us or tell us that it's wrong. And if we're ever told that it's wrong, we as a minority need to rebel against it and show them that no, there's nothing wrong with it. Because if we listen to them and if we conform to what they're saying is wrong, then they win in the end and we lose. And they get exactly what they want, you know, to destroy our self-confidence, to destroy our culture. And that's what white supremacy is, you know? It's domination. And I just wanted to end off by saying that I really enjoyed this project. I found the book was great, and I think I learned a lot about it. I learned a lot about race theory, and I think I learned a lot about myself and some things that I need to change, you know, as you can see. So that concludes our presentation, and hopefully I'll see you again. Bye!